Star Wars is a franchise that needs no introduction. George Lucas's space opera has spanned multiple mediums, all with varying success and failures. And Star Wars is definitely no stranger to the video game industry. Star Wars games run the gamut, from FPS games, strategy, and even action-adventure games. With all these gaming genres, it's kinda strange we haven't really gotten a full-on open-world Star Wars game. So here comes Ubisoft's take on the franchise with Star Wars Outlaws. Is the game able to live up to the heights of what made the franchise great? Or will we have another easily forgotten Star Wars story? Well, grab your blaster and jump into hyperdrive and join us as we review Star Wars Outlaws. Set between The Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi, Star Wars Outlaws leaves most of the Force mumbo-jumbo and instead focuses on the seedy underbelly of the franchise's criminal underworld. You play as Kay Vess, a thief from the planet Canto Bight, who is looking for a way to strike rich by trying to find a way off the planet. She usually takes on small jobs with her trusty and adorable pet companion named Nix. These two partners in crime try to pull off some daring heists and missions, all in hopes of getting rich. But as usual with these types of stories, a job goes south and Kay is now wanted by a crime syndicate that she tried stealing from. She manages to escape but is now wanted across the entire galaxy and now must use her wits and connections to survive the harsh criminal underworld, all while watching her back for anyone who's looking to cash in her bounty. Kay must now work with the galaxy's multiple crime factions to hopefully earn some money and clear her name. Along the way, she does manage to get some help from other outlaws like the droid ND5. Kay as a character is a great addition to the Star Wars lore, as we don't usually get characters that have nothing to do with the Jedis. It's also great seeing her relationship with the rest of the crew, especially her interactions with Nix. Although her story may be a bit too predictable, the way she goes from a fumbling street thief to a galaxy-known outlaw is quite a fun journey to sit through. The game introduces 3 major factions. Fans of the franchise will definitely recognize some of them. These factions are the Pike Syndicate, the Crimson Dawn, and the Hutt Cartel. Star Wars Outlaws does a great job of fleshing out these factions that you pretty much only hear in passing in other media. Star Wars Outlaws is touted as the first fully open Star Wars single-player game, and as such there are quite a lot of different activities to take part in. Now, while the gameplay pretty much falls into the usual open world formula that Ubisoft is associated with, the game does fall into the same trappings like the other titles like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. Star Wars Outlaws does deviate a bit from the usual Ubisoft open world trappings by shaking up some of the game's mechanics. The main meat of the gameplay is, as the game's title says, being an outlaw. Those familiar with how Ubisoft does their gameplay should be very used to how the gameplay plays out. Since Kay is more of a thief than a soldier, you are mostly sneaking around and striking your enemies from behind. Knowing when to go in for a takedown is quite a thrill, as you can get spotted at any moment when you choose to do a takedown at the wrong time. Melee takedowns aren't the only thing you have for stealth though, as Kay is armed with her trusty blaster, which has an option to knock out enemies when you switch to the stun mode on her gun. It does need to recharge every time you use it, but doing more melee takedowns will lower down the cooldown. Speaking of her blaster, it is also a very useful weapon when everything goes sideways. The gunplay of Star Wars Outlaws feels pretty fun and feels like a mix of Watch Dogs and the modern EA Battlefront games. Kay has also access to many skills that come handy when sneaking into an enemy compound. She's able to lockpick doors and hack computers to access some locked areas around the world. These all come with a sort of minigame attached to them, which you can turn off in the settings. The lockpicking minigame for us is quite fun though, as this doesn't pause the game unlike other games, and you have to make sure that you aren't spotted as you try to pick a lock. This makes for an intense moment of quickly trying to pick it before the enemy patrols come back. Kay is able to learn more skills as the game progresses, but unlike other Ubisoft titles, you don't unlock these by leveling up. The game doesn't have a level system, and instead, you'll have to find experts throughout the galaxy that can help teach you new moves and skills. This makes for a fun and immersive way of getting Kay to learn new skills instead of having her suddenly learn a move all on her own. What makes Star Wars Outlaws unique though is the inclusion of your pet Nix into the main core gameplay. Nix isn't just there to be a cute little furball. Nix can actually help you a lot both during the stealth sections and the combat sections. When going for the sneaky approach, Nix is able to activate doors ahead of you or distract guards and lure them into certain spots. Nix is even able to temporarily stun an enemy with an attack, which makes them vulnerable to a quick takedown. This gets very useful when you need to take down a group of multiple enemies, as Nyx can give you time to take out one while the other is distracted. While in combat, Nyx is able to grab you items in case you are pinned down with nowhere to move. You can ask Nyx to fetch you some health items, grenades, and even a rifle to help combat the barrage of lasers aimed at you. Aside from the combat and stealth sections, Star Wars Outlaws has a reputation system that you must keep track of. There are 3 factions, 4 once you progress further into the game, that all have their own trust meter that you must be aware of as you do missions. As K, you must make a name for yourself and accept jobs that could boost your credibility as an outlaw. You are able to accept many different types of jobs that will earn you rewards from each of the factions in the game. These range from smuggling items to a more sneaky infiltration mission. These missions may also affect your standing with the different factions found across the game. The more you are liked by a faction, the better the benefits you get when you are in an area under their control. These can range from access to better gear or even to a more useful perk of being able to come and go within their territory as you please. It is worth noting though that this does not exempt you from wandering into a restricted area. Another thing that you need to be wary about is that most missions of the game will have you decide on which faction you really want to support or get on the good side of. Doing a certain mission for one faction may decrease your standing with another, so it is up to you to determine where your allegiances lie. The game gives you many options to increase or decrease your reputation with those factions. You can choose to honor the deal and complete the job for the faction that gave it to you, or you can double-cross them and get in the good graces of an opposing one. Now this is what makes you truly feel like a mercenary looking for the best deal possible. Now where do you spend your hard-earned credits from these jobs? Well, the game has a lot of side activities you can take part in. There are many places in the vast open world to see and use your money on, made easy with the speeder you acquire early in the game. As you explore the world, you will encounter some side activities like betting parlors and gambling dens. You are able to take part in these activities like playing cards or even betting on a horse race. We honestly spend way too much time playing the card game, also known as Sabak in the game, more than we like to admit. Like, way too much. The game also features a nice upgrade system for both your speeder and your ship, so there are really quite a number of ways to spend your money on it. These range from making your vehicles go faster or making it easier to turn with them. Space exploration also plays a big part in Star Wars Outlaws, as some contracts will have you fly up into orbit to complete said contracts. Just like the ground, there are also a lot of things to find while exploring space, like missing cargoes as well as space stations to dock at. You will even come across factions fighting up in space, and it is up to you on who you would rather defend. The flying controls are pretty responsive, and we honestly had lots of fun just flying around between planets and exploring space environments that the game offers. With all that being said, the game does feel like it gets a bit repetitive in the later stages, and some players may even find the overall gameplay loop boring. And that's not including some of the bugs we encountered when playing, like this moment all the enemies merged into one. But in our time as we played through the game, just exploring the vast and open world of the Star Wars universe was enough to give a lot of joy to the Star Wars fan like me. While we're on topic of the vast Star Wars universe, Star Wars Outlaws does an excellent job of making us feel immersed in this already expansive universe. The visuals of each planet alone made us feel like we were living our childhood dream of exploring the planets found in the franchise. The game's 4 planets, 5 if we include the intro, all have very distinct biomes and atmospheres to them. From the snowy city of Kijimi to the familiar dunes of Tatooine, the game does a great job of bringing these places to life. We honestly just kept getting lost in awe at some of the environments in the game, which made us crash our speeder quite a few times. The city's hub areas all feel very lived in with all the citizens going about their day, which gives a very immersive vibe as you explore the world. The major characters also feel like they fit well into the already established universe. Kay as a protagonist feels like a breath of fresh air, as she isn't your usual goody two-shoes type character and is actually willing to double-cross people at a moment's notice, but at the same time is willing to help out those in need. She gives us the vibe of how Han Solo was when he was first introduced, and she does feel like the type of person to shoot first in a tense situation. And yes, Han did shoot first. As for the audio, it's no surprise that it's also great. The voices of the cast all sound well acted and really draws you into the story. Kay's interaction with her crew like Nyx and ND5 don't feel forced at all and gives these characters some great party banter.
You think they could be listening to me, ND?
Oh, they are, but don't worry. Nothing you say is important.
Wow. Okay.
It is very noticeable when Kay gives Nyx certain orders, as each of her lines really changes depending on the context of the move. The voice actor did a great job of portraying Kay as a newbie to how the criminal underworld works and how she slowly gets used to it in the later stages of the game. Aside from the voice acting, even the ambient sounds of the city sound immersive with how the people in the streets talk about their daily lives. This gives you a sense of realism while you walk the streets of each city and really draws you into the world. The combat sounds makes every fight a quite intense one, as hearing the multiple blaster lasers fly around you makes for some adrenaline pumping moments in the game. Even the sounds of the more mechanical things like your speeder and ship all sound very in line with what you would hear in the movies. The audio isn't free from the bugs though, as there are times where the audio cues end up getting mismatched or even disappearing at one point. Although that's nothing a few patches can't fix. From the variety of worlds to the many activities you can take part in, this may seem like the dream Star Wars game to some. And with the shift to not focusing on any of the Force and Jedi elements, it makes for a refreshing take on the franchise. While the game still has quite a few bugs to iron out and a very repetitive game loop, there's a lot of things to like about Star Wars Outlaws, especially if you are already a huge fan of the franchise. That's why we here at Game8 are giving Star Wars Outlaws a 90 out of 100. Would you guys agree? Or maybe you have your own take on it? Let us know in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more gaming related content, and we'll see you in the next one.